Hudson, man. How you doing? It's good to see you.
Good to see you, man. Thank
Yeah.
you for having me.
Yeah, I'm glad you can make it. We've been trying to make this work, and I know a lot of people are really excited
Yeah.
about this series, and we're definitely going to talk about that some during this interview. But I really want people to get a feel for who you are if they haven't met you, and if they have met you, to get to know you deeper, because I mean, you're a guy worth knowing. You know.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's super cool to be coming back here. I love the name of your podcast and video series you got going with Chasing Roots. For me, it's coming back to my roots a little bit here with Great Plains cross country, and I'm excited to get into things today. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah. So, I mean, a little bit of a teaser. You're starting up Great Plains cross country, and so you've been out of state for a while. You're coming back.
Yeah.
Give us a brief overview of what you've got going on with that.
Yeah. So like you said, been living in Kentucky for the past 8 years now. And with that, just we'll get into the whole story later, I'm sure. But yeah, moving back to Oklahoma, starting a racing series, Great Plains Cross Country, that's going to be going all over the state of Oklahoma. And we're excited. I hope to bring something new to the state for us, a little bit different from maybe what anybody around here has ever seen before. And have had the taste of GNCC and some of these other large series on the East Coast, and we're really preparing to bring it in full swing here to the Oklahoma region.
Yeah, I mean, I know I'm pumped for it. Everything I've seen online has been just that you've produced. This has been like top notch. Everybody's, from what I've seen, is everybody's pumped. So yeah, we'll get into the details of that. I'm going to go off into the weeds, probably into the woods.
That's good. I like it.
So you could say,
yeah.
But I kind of want to start out and go kind of progress through your life to where you are now. First of all, how old are you?
I'm 27.
27.
I had to ask my wife that the other day. I've had so many concussions. I go between 27 and 28. I'm like, but thankfully I'm on the younger side of it.
So I'm 31, and I remember the first time I saw you. I didn't meet you at the time, but you were on 65s.
Oh, nice.
This was at Anadarko. Do you remember that track, Super Sandy? And I was in the beginner class, which was the row in front of that one was long course mini. And I don't know if the rules have changed since then, but I don't think there used to be rules now. But you showed up on a deep sand course on a 65, and I remember looking over at my buddies and stuff like that, and they're like, who is that kid?
I remember
like,
that race.
That kid might not want to be out here. Like, no, that's Hudson. So you would have had to have been like maybe 11. Because I would have been 13, so you would have been like, what?
Yeah.
9?
9.
Yeah,
that's
whatever
9.
it is.
Yeah, because I got on 85 when I turned 11.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was young.
So you were my hero from that day on.
That's so funny. I haven't thought of that race in years, but like I have vague memories now of it. And the only reason I remember it is because I remember everybody freaking out. You remember the creek jump in the back?
Yeah, I do.
So like there was a line to go around it. Well, it was almost too deep for my bike to go through that race. I think we'd gotten some rain
to go around it.
To go around it.
Yeah.
And so I rode out there a lot, and I knew I could jump it. So I like remember jumping it on a 65, and people like freaking out. As I was coming up to it, like no, don't hit it. But it was too deep to go around, so you had to go over it. But that was a fun one.
That's too funny.
Yeah.
So kind of start out like, where are you from? What was family life like?
Yeah. So from Lawton, Oklahoma, originally born and raised for the first 18 years, and I'm the oldest of 7 actually. So that was always a fun childhood growing up, and I was homeschooled, and I grew up racing. Started at 5 years old, and on a little air-cooled Adventure 50. A story behind that kind of started basically my grandfather, which was just who I looked up to. He was the one that got me into it. I call him Bob Bop. Mm-hmm. I named him, that was the first words that came out of my mouth. And so that's what he claimed his name to be, was Bob Bop. And so one day I was digging around in his room, just being a nosy little kid, and looked under his bed, and he had a picture of him in a sprint car, a picture of him on a dirt bike that looked similar to what you got here.
Yeah.
And then also a picture of him hunting. And the joke's kind of been, well, you just gotta get wasn't rich enough to race sprint cars, because that's ultimately where I'd probably be. But I picked up on the other two pretty quick, and just fell in love with it from that day on, and still look at that picture today, and like it just still lights a flame under me. So he pretty much told me, he was like, hey, listen, if you can ride a bicycle, he was like, then I'll go get you a dirt bike without training wheels. So I was like, all right. So I went out and like within a week or two, I can't remember, went out and conquered riding a bicycle with no training wheels. And I was really short whenever I was a kid, like super short. And it took a lot longer for me to grow big enough to ride a bike. So there was this KTM shop in Lawton, and I had to go to is Mike Lewis's. Mike Lewis KTM is the name of it. And I'd always have like my mom, if we're running errands, I'd be like, Mom, you got to stop by Mike Lewis's. I got to see if I'm big enough to fit a 50, you know. And the first day I like could touch the ground and have my other foot on the foot peg, you know, he's like, I'll buy one. So that went on for 6 months or so. And finally I bought my first bike, or he bought my first bike, and the rest is kind of history after that. So rode around all over the country with my grandparents and with my siblings too. You know, Grayson, he raced for a couple years. Yeah. So
probably still is if you put him on a bike.
Oh yeah. He doesn't really want to, but I keep telling him, I'm like, dude, you're so much more naturally talented than me. Like, just hop on one race. But
so always how the second sibling is, they get to learn from the old one.
I know, he got it lucky, man. He got it good. I was a school of hard knocks, so
yeah. Yeah, I always remember you showing up with your grandpa, and you know, there's always like the side by side, and then like 5 kids in there.
Yeah, we were an army rolling into races
for real. But I always remember you showing up with your grandpa, and you know, everyone else called him Bop Bop too.
Yeah.
You know, he was kind of like the community grandpa.
Yeah, he really was. Yeah,
he's a super sweet guy. Sorry to hear about his passing.
Hey,
it's big on the community.
Yeah, he's with the Lord. You know, that's one thing that is cool about, you know, and I'm sure we'll get more into that later, but you know, the legacy that he left behind was that this is not the end. There's an eternity whenever you do know Jesus and whenever you're a follower of Christ. And so anytime I have anybody tell me they're sorry, like, yeah, I miss them for sure. Like driving here today, you know, I was like, oh man, I want to call him and tell him what's going on with things, you know, but
he'd be excited. He'd be so pumped.
Yeah, he'd be so pumped. But you know, it's just like, I am thankful though. Like, you know, I know he's in heaven, he's in eternity with the Lord. And so there's a real peace about that too.
Praise God.
But, yeah.
So coming to the races with him, was your dad never rode? Did your mom ever ride when she was a little girl or anything?
No, neither one of them did. No, my dad, you know, I mean, he was really busy, like when we were kids, obviously, like
only
providing
like
for
a
us.
handful of times.
Yeah, he was a firefighter. He just retired recently and had a fence company too. So he stayed really busy, supporting us, obviously, however he could. And then Mom was kind of at home, you know, holding down the fort while we got to go play on the weekends.
Definitely raised a family of hard workers.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
absolutely.
You guys bust it.
Yeah.
So kind of first racing memories. What do you remember?
Anadarko, actually.
Really?
Anadarko was the very first race. I was 5 years old and on that air-cooled 50, and Dennis Easter and my Bob. We went to this race, and you know, for the 50s, I don't know why, but they ran us on the motocross track there, and the motocross track was like 2 foot deep sand, you know, it's over the tires. And so I just remember them telling me, like, you're going to fall, but just get back up every time.
So many stickers there too.
Oh my gosh, it's awful. And so basically I just remember they had to pick me up 100 times. Like, I think the race was 30 minutes. It probably took me 30 minutes to make a lap is what it felt like. But
you probably looked like a cactus.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it was so bad. But you know, I don't really remember, like, I remember races where I cried. I don't remember crying at that one. Like, I just remember loving every second of it. Like, even though I crashed, I think I literally probably had to pick my bike up and walk it forward to get on it more than I actually rode it in a straight line. But Dennis and my grandfather, they would just swap. They would just leapfrog each other, you know, and who picked up each time. And I don't remember how I finished or anything there, but I just remember it was a complete nightmare for them, I'm sure. But I was hooked after that. So
that's amazing. There's so many guys like Dennis Easter.
Oh yeah,
those almost like the old guard, you know, like when I first started, it was like 07 was real heavy, and it's from 07 probably to like 2013 or so. Yeah, that's when I was real heavy into it. And you know, people come and go. You know, you kind of age out of it for a lot of people. Some of those guys are still in it. You know, Glenn Sinclair's been in it for the whole time.
Yeah,
still
literally
smiling
from the
like
beginning.
Crazy. So I'm sure most of you guys know Glenn. I'm going to try to get him on the podcast. I think
that'd be so cool.
to just tell a story.
I love Glenn. It's honestly, it's every time I see him, it like just takes me back to like those days. It
like makes my heart so full.
Yeah,
every time I see him,
it's awesome.
But some of those guys were like foundational to our sport in Oklahoma because they're the ones that started Okra back in the 90s, early 90s or something like that. So that stuff's still going on. Many families have been affected by racing. I know it brought my family together. It's awesome. Everybody I meet, especially cross country, is like such a tight family atmosphere that it really gives a foundation for a lot of families to kind of rally around. So I think that's really cool, and I think that's so cool about what you're doing. And kind of the pieces that you're putting into place to kind of make sure that stays that way. I think it's pretty cool. So you obviously started riding young. You progressed pretty quickly in the scheme of things because you went from minis to A class like nothing, and then ended up in pro class. What was that kind of journey like for you?
It's all kind of a blur looking back now. Like I wish like it's true, life is but a vapor, because I look back on it's like, man, where did all those years go? But it was fun. Like I had my grandfather obviously and my nanny and Bob both invested a lot into me, and so a lot of years of getting to be under some really great riders like Tony Joyner and Robbie Raynard, and getting to be trained by them from the time I was on 85s is kind of whenever I started really taking it more serious. But it was just looking back now, like I can't really pinpoint one area, where it like all really clicked. It was just kind of like over time, and there was a lot of guys too, like you said, just the friendships and stuff that came from it were, you got like Alex Nagy, Brendan Clark, Logan Adams, all those guys now that, we went up through together, and it was fun. It was definitely something I'll never forget.
Yeah. So many lifelong friendships and connections and networking. And we were talking about that right before we hit record. It's just you always know somebody somewhere in your state or across the country, and once you like see a moto sticker on somebody's stuff, you instantly know that you're going to click with that person.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the thing is like, I mean, I drive all over, basically anywhere from here all the way over to the East Coast. I've traveled like pretty much all of it, and it's like, I've got friends, pretty much you could drive 100 miles and like at every exit, every 100 miles,
you got
it's like, I got somebody there, I got somebody here. And so it's the fun part is really looking back at all those memories. You can see like points in the road, where you met so-and-so, and it's pretty sweet. But
so your story kind of shifts. So you were in pro class. I know that maybe not like a biggest part of your life, and you were in pro, but you were not necessarily a pro. Yeah. But I mean, still pros. That's fast. That's what we all have to look up to.
Yeah.
Actually, a little side, little rabbit trail on this. There's like this discussion, I think, over the past years or however many, is like, what do you, especially your perspective of being a pro in the past, what do you think that brings to a club? Do you think it's like important? It's not important? What's the emphasis on that? Because I've seen it both ways where like, I don't show up to watch the pros, but if the pros aren't there, it kind of takes away some of the validity because you almost follow where the pros go. What's your perspective on that?
Well, I think there's two aspects of it. One, nowadays is social media, right? Like a big following is pro riders for social media. So from my perspective now as a race promoter is I want the pros because I want them to be able to post and share their experience for other people to see it. But on the other front, like, I really don't know how much they truly help because at the end of the day, you put a pro purse out for them and, all their entry fee money's gone. Yeah. But, to me, like I look at it now from a different lens because what I thought I was or what I thought we were in Oklahoma was a notch or two below what the guys on the East Coast are, obviously. You go to the GNCCs and places like that. And so I think it's healthy to keep pros around. I mean, hopefully they always stay around, but for more than just that reason is it kind of sets the level, right? It sets the standard of what fast is in your area.
That's true. That's a great point.
And, I think if you have a healthy pro class, they're going to always be pushing each other to the next level. which ultimately is a great thing for everybody, because then you have the kids on 85s that are striving to be like them one day. And you have the kids in like C class and open B class and all these classes that are just wanting to be the top guy locally. And ultimately, like, those guys kind of set the stage for what everybody else is going to be, and brings everybody else to a higher level. So I don't think I could give you that answer back then. I probably would just say, oh yeah, we're fast and that is it.
Of course,
but
people come
ultimately,
to watch us.
but no, ultimately, I think it's more so like for the health of the racing community that it's good to have pros there. And why I would advocate for them. So
very well said. Like, I've never heard that perspective. I've heard both of the other sides, but not necessarily that because you have the pros, not necessarily that they're adding value at every race by bringing more people in the gate or get more people in the line, is that they're adding value because they're pushing the bar forward for everyone else. So if you're the beginner, you've got someone else to look up to, and that's the class in front of you, and all the way up the tier to where the expert class is still trying to push because they want to be as fast as the pro guys. If they're raising that ceiling, I guess. Then the whole club grows, the whole state grows. Because which Texas is a lot bigger state. But like, they've got just blistering fast guys.
And that's a perfect example, right? It's not only the pros that are fast. It's their A riders, their B riders,
their C riders are probably faster
their
than
C riders,
most of us,
And that's really where I begin to see it. Is I can remember one of the first races I did over on the East Coast whenever I moved over there. I moved over there and I was like, oh, I'm going to go run pro. And right away I was just like, hey, I'm going to go jump in pro class, going to try to like win the championship this year. And I got like my butt handed to me. Like, absolutely handed to me. And I remember, I think I finished like the first couple races like 8th to 5th. It was like a really good finish. It was like several minutes off the top guys. Just coming from like winning here by several minutes, and it's like, oh man, I'm in a different world. And I had like open A guys beating me, and I had like 2 or 3 kids from open B catching me. It was like everybody was so much faster there because your top guys are so much faster. So that's the lens I choose to look at it through, is just kind of like, and for me, one of the things I want to do is be able to help improve like the racers level in Oklahoma as well, everybody's level. And so hopefully we bring some pros here. That's the ultimate goal.
We're kind of bouncing around, but I think absolutely you will. Just with and it's not a slight on anybody that's done anything in the past.
No,
And I don't think that's where your heart is on any of this, but and maybe it is, but
whatever. No,
but,
not at all. We'll set the stage there.
I think that having it ran so professionally in the background, which we need to get back to at some point.
We're going on a rabbit trail.
Like, your background and the stuff that you've done with your field ministry and things like that, like, you've, in your experiences going to other races, like, you know what standards can be achieved, and people want to be a part of like the club that's got it all together, organization that's got it going on. And so I think we're going to draw people from Kansas, Texas, Missouri, Arkansas, Colorado, maybe. I think we're going to get some fast guys.
Yeah, that's the goal,
to bring us in. So I think this going to be, I'm pretty stoked.
It's going to be sweet.
A little bit scared because I ended up getting bumped to the plus 30 expert class, and I'm not an expert rider. I'm not an expert rider, so I kind of filled up the gate this year, but. Maybe I can talk to a guy to bump me back down.
Maybe so.
So it's a good transition. So we were talking about how you were a pro rider, and then you kind of stopped racing. You got into ministry. I know that you helped out with FCA motocross, and that kind of transitioned into some other stuff. So take us kind of through your passion for ministry and kind of where it started and blossomed towards.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, to back up maybe even a step further, I was really blessed to grow up in a Christian home, and was at church on the weeks that we weren't at the races, but there was still like this, for me, just maturing that needed to be done as a believer and a follower of Christ. And so was really honestly probably more focused on racing for a lot of years than anything else. And just, it's pretty standard for a teenage kid, teenage boys. It's, hey, I want to go race and I want to do this for a living and, all that fun stuff. But like you said, did an FCA camp. I believe it was my first year I went pro actually in Oklahoma, 2015. No, it'd be
14.
2014. It'd be
the first year that
14.
Gene took it over, wasn't it?
Yep, it was.
So,
So 2014 at Raynard's. And, that really opened my eyes to like, okay, I'm a believer. I love racing dirt bikes. I have a passion for it. I have a gift for it that God has given me. And I can use this to honor and glorify Him. And so it really began to open my eyes. And I think I went home that year, and just kind of went on about my thing and really thought it was cool, what they did there, where you bring in, 50, 60 kids and you get to train them for the week and you get to teach them and do small group Bible studies with them and then do a chapel service in the evening time and feed them, take care of them. It's kind of like the perfect little world, is the perfect summer camp.
Yeah.
And
especially for a dirt biker.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it's awesome. Like we don't like to go do, hopscotch and patty cake and all that stuff and do summer crafts. Like we want to be on our dirt bike. So I thought that was the coolest thing. And the Lord really began to do a work in my heart just over time with realizing that the world's not all about me. It's not all about dirt bikes, at the end of the day. And also my identity. I would have a bad race and just completely be a turd for the next couple of days. I thought that the world was just ending if I didn't win or if I didn't do well. And so I think the Lord was really changing me a lot to realize that my identity wasn't in who I was as a racer. It was in Him and being a believer. And so for me, the next year they moved it to Fry Lake. And I went to, I can't remember. Maybe they moved it to Fry Lake that year. Anyways, long story short, I got to meet Donita Pavoni, which is the main lady in charge of FCA, and went to camp there and helped quite a bit that following year at FCA and ran, actually, I think they had an off-road side. I might be getting my years mixed up, but anyways, they ran an off-road side and I was kind of overseeing that. Really, it just clicked for me. How to do the training zones, how to loop them together, how to do a schedule, how to keep everybody on time. And so I enjoyed it. And she was like, you should really go to another camp. I'm like, well, where's your next one at? And they were all over on the East Coast, to me, I had this invisible wall, around Oklahoma, oh no, that's too far away. I can't do that. And so, anyway, she kind of kept talking to me about it, and I can't remember exactly how it went down, but she basically was like, hey, we got a new camp in New York. Would you be willing to fly up there and help us launch this camp? And so at that point I had won the pro championship the year before and was trying to defend it. Brendan Clark and I were racing Okra and battling. We were tied in points throughout the summer break. It was going to go down the last 4 races. And I remember that race was it was the week before Davis, which was just one of the most brutal tracks right after summer break. And I made a decision. I was like, you know what? I'll still go to this. It's going to really kind of mess up my schedule a little bit, but I can get back in time to do practice and still race. So hopped on a plane and flew up to New York and went to that camp, and it was just so cool. There was dirt bike people in Oklahoma and there's dirt bike people in New York. Yeah. And it's that opened my eyes to me, whoa, there's another world out here. And, I thought I was going to go to New York and it's going to be in Times Square type stuff. You don't know that there's country out there where you're 16, 17 years old. And so went and did that camp and just had a great week there. And she was like, I want you to pray about and consider interning for us. And we also need someone else at our Guatemala camp next month. So I was like, oh my gosh.
That sounds so familiar. Donita, if you're watching, I'm pretty sure you just have this on record and you just say this.
Yes.
She's a master recruiter.
Oh, she is. She's amazing. Absolutely. And I'm so thankful for Donita. She really, she helped me grow so much in my faith, but also just in stepping out of my comfort zone. I'd never flown before, never been, I'd never ridden without my grandfather around. Yeah. It was my first time riding without Bob whenever I went to New York. Yeah. And it was so weird because I was like, it's you're 16, 17 years old, you should be able to go ride on your own, right? But I don't know, it was just a weird thing. I was like, so
where's my safety net?
He's nowhere around. I gotta go ride. Yeah, exactly. But anyway, so she was like, hey, I need you to go to Guatemala too. So just went across the country, but now I gotta go out of the country. And man, I just like fell in love with it though, you know, and it was just like an instant yes, you know, to whatever she was asking. And so yeah, I went to Guatemala, super cool experience. Got to go down there and, you know, obviously teach those kids how to ride dirt bikes. I mean, a lot of them rode already. I think there's 300 racers in the state of, or in the country of Guatemala, which you've been there before too,
yeah,
right?
a couple times.
Yeah,
Coolest,
it's so cool.
The coolest experience.
Yeah. And made a lot of great connections there too. Jeff Stanton.
Yeah.
Vico, which you know.
Yeah, passed away. He was a cool dude.
Yeah, he was such a cool dude. And so yeah, lots of cool experiences with that. Long story short, the next year comes around. I had won the pro championship that year as well. And she asked me though, I remember talking to her at New York camp, and she was like, hey, I want you to pray about interning. I was like, okay, what does all that entail? It's like, well, you're going to have to move up to Indiana for the summer. And basically you're there for like 3 months, just going from camp to camp, helping us run things, seeing the backside of the ministry, logistics, and just coordinating the camps and running them. Mm-hmm. And so being the homebody I was kind of like, no way, but prayed about it. And it's kind of like, that was a turning point for me of like, okay, what do I choose? Do I choose like what I want to do, which is racing, because I'm getting better at it? And, you know, kind of at that point I was like, man, I could kind of see myself going and racing some nationals and like getting my feet wet with it, or do I go this route? And anyways, just prayed and felt led to do it. And so accepted the offer for that. And it wasn't like, I want to say it was a month after I accepted that, I had somebody reach out to me and they were like, hey, it was like a smaller GNCC team. They were like, hey, we need a fill-in rider. One of our guys got hurt. Would you be interested in filling in for just like 1 or 2 races? You're like, yeah. And I was just like, oh, when is it? And it was the same weekend as the start date for the internship. Mm-hmm. But for me, like, it was a good, like, looking back now, I'm thankful for it, right? Because it was like, man, I just needed to let that go, you know, and just, and know that like ultimately the path I was heading down was for me. And so, it leads to a lot more stuff after that. I met my wife, Taylor. I mean, that's how I met Taylor. And
so his wife's name is Taylor.
Yeah. So Taylor, she was the other intern, and
no one saw it coming.
Interns.
No one saw it coming.
Yeah, it was written all over my vehicle by the end of the weekend.
Jim was mad.
Oh yeah, he was really mad. I was mad too, because I was like, gosh, I hope she doesn't think I'm going around talking to my friends about her, you know?
You didn't have to.
I didn't have to. It was written all over my face and everything. But yeah, so anyways, moved up to Indiana. I say moved up there, but went up there for 3 months and met her. There was another intern as well. And like, still to this day, Taylor and I look at each other, we're like, 2016 was the best year of our life. Like the coolest summer. And for me, like, that's kind of where I felt like I kind of came out of my shell, like as a man, like, you know, like I had to go off and be on my own, provide on my own.
And woo a woman.
Yeah. And so it was a blast, man. Like we went all over, and that was a year, like, I learned so much about not only ministry, but like, you know, leading people, like, you know, being a team leader and being able to disciple people, but also like how to coordinate and run and logistics and all of these things. Like, that internship was super helpful. And so long story short, that led to a 1 week break in the middle of our summer. And I think I went to Taylor's family's house for that week. And because I didn't want to come all the way back home, it was just like a couple days. She was like, hey, there's this off-road camp, and they need some help too. I was like, was it a fuel camp or is it FCA camp? You know, and she's like, no, it's this fuel ministry, and it's like their first or second year, but they're in Indiana, and they need another instructor, and they need another team leader in the girls. I was like, okay, well, let's run over there. It's like an hour and a half away.
That's how I lost half my staff.
Yeah, it happened to me too. So anyways, I go over there and I meet Mark Nichols, which is now my boss. Yeah. And
hi, Mark.
It's so funny. Mark's probably going to listen to this. I often say, like, I didn't like Mark the first time I met him. Like, I'll openly say it. He knows it too.
I think you're the best guy I've ever met, Mark.
Oh, don't listen to him. But anyway, so like, he made fun of me all week long, you know, like, he thanked all the instructors, but he didn't thank me, you know, like all these things.
He was always mean to you.
Yeah, he was always mean to me. But anyways, like, just something, you know, something clicked, and like, we kept in touch. And I think after that, we got married. Let's see here. I gotta get my math right.
Hold on. You got married on April 19th, 2017.
No. Oh, you're close. You're close. You're not really that close. May 27th, 2017. It's your anniversary. We got married on the same day.
Edit. We're going to edit that out.
Holy cow, that's bad, dude.
I said my wife's birthday. May 27th, 2017.
You can re-say it if you need to.
No, it's all right. I'm just going to edit that piece out. Sorry, babe.
So after I remember my wedding anniversary, May 27th. So yeah, we met 2016. We got engaged that winter. Is really quick. Doing long distance, we were like, man, we knew each other very quickly because we spent like every single day working together for 3 months. And so it really sped up the dating process. And then I actually herniated like 3 discs in my lower back right at the end of the internship and wasn't able to race, like didn't hardly work. And just basically spent that whole time like doing PT and just resting and trying to get it feeling better. So I had like a couple months there where I didn't get to race at all anyways when I got back. I tried to, but just hurt too bad and need to let it heal. So did that. And then basically just was chasing Taylor, the whole springtime and getting ready to be married. I think I moved out January 1st, 2018. Moved out New Year's Day, 2018. Or sorry, 2017. Get my years all mixed up now.
We're getting old.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
And then got married that spring. And we took a couple years off after that. Like, I shouldn't say off. We raced periodically, but just, being newlyweds and broke. And she was in college. I was working. So things just really kind of slowed down for us there for a couple
But you were
years.
working for fuel at the time?
No, not starting off. No. I moved to Kentucky and kind of job hopped around a little bit while we moved quite a bit. Like in the summertime, we lived in like central Kentucky, and then she went to school in western Kentucky. So we had some changing around to do for the first couple months, and ended up kind of job hopping for a year and a half or so. And then went to, I can't remember how it happened. Went to like Ironman and happened to run into Mark and didn't really think much of it, but he called me like in the springtime after that. And he was like, hey, he's like, would you and Taylor be open to coming up and helping us with trackside ministry one weekend? We're shorthanded. And I was like, sure, we'll do that. So it was a good weekend for us to get away, go out to race and help. And so we went and did that, and like started getting all these odd questions from him, like, I'm like, why is he asking me this?
Yeah.
Like he's just filling me out. And before I know it, he calls me again and he's like, hey, we've been praying and we really want you to pray about coming on staff with Fuel. And at the time I'd, just been like just job hopping around. I was like, okay, well, what all does this entail, And so we got to talking about it, and it was probably like a 4-month process of me just like trying to figure out what to do. And where Taylor graduated, we moved up to near Louisville, Kentucky, which is where Fuel Ministries headquarters is, which is just Mark's house. We call it,
don't need to make it.
Yeah, Mark calls it the Fuel Ministry World Headquarters, and so it's like, well, it's just his house, but it's Louisville's awesome place. Like love Louisville, Kentucky. So moved up there, and I've been on staff for 5 years. Obviously, kind of moving back to part-time now with this transition, but Fuel Ministry has just been a huge blessing in my life, and great part of it for sure. So, which I'm sure we'll get more into, but
yeah, and that actually transitions really well. So like being a part of Fuel Ministry, you got to go to the IXCRs, the Indiana series, GNCCs, these, and outside looking in, I've known a few people that have gone up and raced the Indiana series because it's like almost GNCC caliber racing. And it draws people in. So you get to experience these series from almost behind the scenes. I mean, you're there as kind of a vendor, but kind of behind the scenes. You're meeting and interfacing with the riders. You're seeing how it's all going. You're probably participating every once in a while.
Yeah.
How did those kind of shape leading up to you deciding to start a series here in Oklahoma?
Yeah, that was like, honestly, that's kind of some of the most pivotal stuff, really. we went to IXCRs is like the second or third largest series in the nation. So you got GNCC, and it's like kind of a toss up between IXCR or a series in Florida, FTR. And man, it is like full blown, like just the level right below, GNCC. And so I started actually going to those and doing trackside ministry there with Fuel in the semi on Vendor Row, like you're talking about, and raced them as well, and raced for several years and really enjoyed them. Like tons of competition. On any given weekend, they'll have, 12, 13, 1,400 racers. I mean, just huge turnouts, like really, really big turnouts. And they do the podium announcements and the starting lineup and, all of the stuff that you see at GNCC, they do it on a local level as well, which whenever I was racing, I just thought that was the coolest thing. I'm like, man, you're telling me I don't have to go race against like Caleb Russell and Thad Duvall, but I still get to be on, the front row and be announced and all that stuff. And, but yeah, through that, we were able to, obviously working with Fuel Ministry on Vendor Row, there was many events that I put on as well, as like an opportunity to get to know people. We would do pit bike races and Stasic and Strider races right there on Vendor Row. And so we're able to get to know the promoters really well. Tim and Michelle, they're incredible people, like, some very good friends of ours. And I've called Tim several times and like just been like, dude, I need help with this. I don't know what to do, like with getting things set up for the racing series. And so yeah, through that time was able to really see a lot of the things behind the curtain, I guess you could say, just with becoming close friends with them. Like you travel so many weekends in a row and you see the same people consistently up and down Vendor Row or that are promoters and run the event. And so for me, it was a chance to really get to know them and then just see a lot of the stuff behind the scenes and even help them from time to time. Like, you just see things that go on, kind of step in here or there and help out however you can. But there's a lot of cool series. I mean, it wasn't just IXCR. There's, like you said, GNCC, went to quite a few of those. We did a full season of those with Taylor. She ran the series. I tried to, but being mechanic and racer and Fuel Ministry was too much. So I just opted out of racing. I was like, hey, I need to be her mechanic for the year since she's racing WXC class. And
she put you in your place?
Yeah, she put me in my place pretty quick on that one. But
she's fast, by the way.
Yeah, she's pretty quick. So she finished, I think she finished eighth in the nation in the WXC class that year. So just really cool getting to see like GNCC, IXCR, been to quite a few FTRs. And then just like, dude, you name it, anywhere from here over to the East Coast, like I've probably been to one race, like with any local series around. So
Johnny Cash song.
Yeah. So it's just like, it's kind of cool though, to take all of these different series I've seen and like some of them do different things, Crossroads, I kind of got the idea to race bikes on Saturday through them, and then you take things from another series and there's just so many cool ideas out there, and like building your own to me was kind of like the vision started to form, like, man, this would be so cool if you could take a little bit of this and this and this and this, and you just make the ultimate series.
And that's exactly a segue into what I was wanting to get into next, is like everybody kind of has, I'd like this to be different. I'd like this to be different. You have the opportunity to engineer a race series. I mean, you still have to cater to what the masses are going to want, but you get the chance to actually, it's not put up to a vote for the most part. I mean, you kind of have to, people vote with where they go, but you get the decision to make it how you want.
Yeah.
What were some of the things that you're like if you were making this checklist, which you probably had something along those lines, like I want it to be this, 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 and this. What were some of those things?
Well, first and foremost is going back to the very beginning, family friendly. I do not like one-day events because I feel like you show up, you do your thing, you leave. So for me, a 2-day event was crucial. And just the family aspect that comes with that. Like it's so positively impacted my childhood and my life that for me, it's like, man, I want to create an atmosphere for families and kids that was like mine, and to where they can come on Friday, they spend the whole weekend, they get to ride both days if they want, and they have a lot of fun. And so that was the first one. The next one would be, I'm a bike guy too. I've raced a quad a little bit. Known fact you might not know about, but
I didn't know
little
that.
fact there. But
These people know now.
Yeah, they know now. So there is picture proof out there somewhere that I have raced a quad, and I actually, it's pretty cool. I actually enjoyed it. It was pretty fun. But yeah, the next thing would be, as a bike guy, racing bikes first. It's, to me, it never really bothered me that bad racing on quad ruts, but for a lot of bike guys it does. So to me, it's like, man, that's like one of the number one complaints I always hear. It's like, we can fix that easily. Run the bikes on Saturday, run quads on Sunday. So I would say that would be the second one. And then the next was just like presentation. I'm huge on presentation. I go to a lot of these other series where they have a good vendor row, and like their banners are nice and neat, and their flags are straight, and just like presentation is huge to me. And I feel like it can make or break things in a lot of ways. Like, it shows that people actually care about something, and that's not to discredit anyone else, but like whenever you see that, it's like, man, these guys are serious, And so those are kind of the three big ones: family, and then bikes on Saturday, bikes race first, and then presentation as well. So.
Yeah. What are some of the, it's this way probably across most series, there's the way your series is going to be set up, as far as there's a guy that owns it. I don't know if you would call it like a sole proprietor or whatever. Like, there's a guy in charge, or family in charge or whatever, and they're running the series. Or here locally, it's different. It's a little bit like a club, and there's different aspects and nuances to that. But how do you think that? What are some of the pros and cons to maybe that structure?
I mean, we can just straight up call it an LLC, right? Versus an organization, a not-for-profit. And, the biggest thing I see with that is Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma and Texas are some of the only states, and Florida as well, that are organization-based. And the biggest difference I see, I want to be careful with my wording here, but the biggest difference I see is you have too many people trying to make the decisions and too many agendas going too many different directions, as to where you see all these other series on the East Coast, and it's run by an LLC. It's one guy making the decisions, and it is something that is like, there's no wiggling around on it. Like, it's just matter of fact, this is how it's going to be. This is our rule book. This is our schedule. This is, how we're going to run it. And whether you like it or not, it doesn't shift around and change, based upon what one person says versus the other. Yeah, there's consistency. And ultimately, I think what people want is, they want a good atmosphere, they want a good environment, but they want consistency. And so to me, I think that is one of the biggest things with the decision we made as well. It's just like, I've got a vision. I know what I want to do. This is what we're going to do, is go this route. So,
yeah. And I think a lot of people will respect that.
Yeah.
I think, and I don't want to put you on the hot seat, but the thing that's in my mind is like, I think you're in it for the long haul, but what happens 10 years down the road?
Yeah.
We've
got I'm not going to let all the tricks out of our sleeve, but we've got a long-term plan. I mean, we've got, a 1, 3, 5, 10-year goals, with this, and only the Lord knows, where we'll actually end up in all that time. But that is the good part about an organization, right? It's there's some organizations that have been around 40, 50, 60 years. I think FTR's been around 60 years down in Florida.
Yeah,
it's just like,
crazy.
Man, that's crazy. That's awesome. And that wouldn't happen with one individual. So there's pros and cons to everything. But same with IXCR and GNCC. Eventually, it can be sold off to another individual, and
it can continue.
It can continue is ultimately what the answer is. It comes down to. But to answer the question short, like, we do have 1, 3, and 5-year, 10-year goals, and it keeps us motivated and moving that direction. I try to set goals with everything that I do, and I think it keeps us striving towards excellence and doing better.
And I think, it's a startup business.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's a business.
Yeah.
And what I think is cool is, like, you're the perfect guy to do it. I remember when I first saw it. I don't remember when you first released it. It was like in the fall, wasn't it?
No, I released it in July. I think it was July 1st.
I kind of remember when that stuff first came out, and it wasn't tied to you.
Yeah.
And so I'm racking my brain, like, who could this be? Because I'm like, this stuff's coming out pretty good. Like, who could this be? And based off of, we have a lot of overlapping friends. And
Yeah.
like based off of the key people that are sharing this information, it has to be Hudson. And I think I just blind texted you. I said no quads.
Yeah.
So sorry for you guys. There's a place where I stand. This is not the podcast episode for that. You can stoke the flame if you want to in the comments. That's up to you.
I have a lot of quad friends too, so I'll have to stand up and defend them if you go down that route. But I, being a bike guy, I get it too, you know. Like,
and I don't want you to be wrong on camera, so we're going to continue. I'm just kidding. Hudson, when I said that, he had a really good comeback.
I vaguely
immediately stopped me in my tracks. I was like, I can't argue with you. What did you say?
What's that?
Do you remember what you said to me?
No, not really.
You said quad riders need Jesus too.
That's right. Yeah. And ultimately, that's the goal. You know, it's like I want to be an example wherever I go. And so to me, it's like, well, why would I leave them out? You know. So yeah.
You're right. So I kind of want to get into some of the behind the scenes stuff for what it takes to make this series run. Things like track selection, your perspective on cutting trails, and kind of all that stuff. So let's start us out. What's it like making the connections to get a track? And by the way, Kanawa's on there. That place, don't miss it. Yeah, that track is.
You won't want to miss that one.
By far my favorite track. It's epic, so fun. You got some good tracks.
Yeah. So obviously going back to my childhood, a lot of fun ones there. Whenever we decided we were going to do this, and before it's even released, I just like went back through the archives of like old races I love, and I was like, all right, I'm just going to start trying to find these people's phone number, even if they haven't had a race in 15 years. And you know, I picked like 2 or 3. Right?
At least they remember who you are, or who Jim was.
Yeah, well, I had to make a connection on some of them, you know, because I was maybe still in diapers for some of them. But, you know, it was still like, it was just a lot of working through like the connections that I have here, you know. And thankfully, I'm just blessed with many great friends and people that I've built a great connection with and trust with. And so, with sorting through it, I won't lie, like it took a long time to get the list together, because you'd have one track that's like, okay, well, they've got a great track, but they don't have enough parking. And so you got to look at both elements of, you know, location for one is probably the most important, of like where it's located in the state. 2 is the track, right? Like the racers care about the track. And then 3 is the parking. And so where you put all 3 of those elements, it kind of narrows that list down pretty quickly of like, okay, there's these options that are currently available, and then you can go out and find new ones. And well, how can you find new ones if you're living in Kentucky and they're over here in Oklahoma? And so, I'm sure we'll get into it, but like there's so many things that just fell into place so like incredibly well that I just can't hardly explain. And honestly, the tracks are one of them. You know, it's just one of those things where I made a trip down in August, and I did it in 2.5 days. I went to every single property and met with them. Like it was like I woke up at 5 o'clock, started driving, got to one at 7 a.m. Met with Roy at 7 a.m. one morning in August, and he rode me around in his pickup, you know, and we looked at the place, and he's got his cattle out there. Just got off the phone with Roy earlier today, actually, and he had been out there cutting trail this weekend. And so, you know, basically just going and meeting these landowners and going, hey, we're bringing something new to the state. I know that you haven't had a race here in years. You know, what's it going to take to get together on this? And you know, will you have some trust in me?
Strong opener.
Yeah. Will you have some trust in me to you know, like kind of open the doors back up to your place and allow people to enjoy your property again, you know, ultimately. And I feel like landowners care a lot more about like, one, yes, they do want to be paid for sure, but also they care deeply about like their property being of value to someone. And you know,
what's all this property if it's not going to benefit?
Yeah, and so you'll find a lot of landowners that are just like, man, I just want people to have a great time. You know, I want to enjoy my place. I want to have the best track of the year. And so I would say that just those conversations, you know, I mean, it was a lot of driving, a lot of miles on the vehicle. I think I got home and I want to say I had 3,500 miles on my truck by the end of the trip. Yeah. Which that's driving back and forth from Kentucky. But just going from property to property and meeting with landowners. And we did a couple cool things too, which you guys will see on the Great Plains page. There's a property we have at the end of the year, Elk City MX. It's kind of doesn't meet our standards for like a minimum of 250 acres and all this parking and stuff.
GP style, I assume.
Yeah, and so what we're going to do with that one is it's got a good amount of woods on it actually that people don't know about, and so we're going to be able to do woods, moto, and grass track. But the ceiling, kind of the thing that made that one work was I was like, hey, listen, I really the only way I'm going to make this property work is if we have the sprint car track as well. And so we're going to have the sprint car track where they start on the sprint car track.
Oh,
they race 3/4 of it. We'll do a tight little dog leg to slow them down and get them off of it. And then we have grandstands all the way around one side. Yeah. You've got, the big announcer tower. You've got concession stands. You've got gravel parking. And then in the infield is where we're going to have our scoring chute, And so like, I really wanted to think through some unique things, like how can we mix this up and make it different? The last race of the year statistically is going to be one of the lower turnouts because you've got football season, you've got all these other things going on. Well, how are we going to get a bigger turnout? Yeah. And it's by thinking outside the box.
Crossing some
and so
borderlines on
get some motocross guys in there and some Texas guys. And so just a lot of thinking outside the box on things. There's a whole aspect of it too, of at least what I think through is, not just what tracks sound cool, but which ones are going to fit the time of year that they're going to be in. And, you want your sandier tracks earlier in the year. And
you get some rain.
You need your tracks that are going to handle moisture well in the springtime. And then in the fall time, what are those properties that are maybe more lower lying where they can, pull up some moisture easier. And so just things like that, that basically, I think I set for every free chance I had for a month, and I just like sit on my computer and like move the races around. Like I had my races and it was like moving the dates, like moving the races around the dates. And then another aspect of it is just like the dates. Like people, get so bent out of shape about dates. Well, if you look at a calendar as a racing series,
it's only 52.
There's not 52. Usable. Yeah, there's only like 25 really. Yeah. And the problem is that there's 5 series in the area that use those 25. And so you got to find a weekend to not upset everybody else and be on the same weekend. And so that was another driving factor for Saturdays as well for bikes, flip-flopping it is because like what happens where we do cross?
That's a high IQ move.
So, it's just like one of those things. It's like, all right, we're going to flip-flop the days and we're going to try to stay off of other local series. And so coordinating with other series, I would call them and, I try to keep all this really quiet, but I could tell it was leaking out because I'd start getting like phone calls like back in June. And I was like, I had to think back in my head, like, who have I told that would know, like who would say something, and before long, I think the word got out and it's kind of funny some of the phone calls I would get, but it would allow me to make conversation to where, I could start working on those dates with other series and figuring things out. So yeah, there's a lot more to it than
absolutely. I think, you're the guy that has to figure out where to put the porta potties. Yeah. And the trash cans. And I assume you have kind of a crew that you've put together that's going to help you out. You can't be the trash can guy and the scoring guy and the guy that calls the landowner and the guy that picks up everything at the end of the weekend.
Well, I'll be a lot of those, but I do have I have a great staff. We're actually meeting this weekend for the first time. We've hired about 16 people to work for us, and they're not volunteers like they are. We want to make sure that our staff are staff. They're paid, and we want them to do well and perform well at their position. And it's going to take an army, and that's a whole nother aspect of it. It's taken from July, from the time I announced it, to I'm sitting here in January, and I just got off the phone yesterday with what I hope is our last role to be filled. And so, we've been careful about who we choose, and we want to make sure that we put together a team that is in one accord and gets along with each other and is best friends. One of my friends that's been just a great mentor to me and helped me a lot. He runs a racing series Mid-South up in Kentucky and Tennessee area, Cashmore. He's just got an incredible team there that we've been able to go shadow for the past couple races, and those guys, like, they just all get along. They all hang out. They hang out on off weekends.
Which keeps them from getting burnt out.
Yeah, and like, I mean, they're all coming to my first race, and shadowing us and helping us, and it's like, dude, that's what I want. I want a team that just like is friends ultimately, and not like and
that's going to overflow to the whole vibe for the whole weekend.
Yes,
when you guys are having a good time, everybody's having a good time.
Exactly, and so that was one big factor for me, was like, okay, I want to find a team that works together well. And we don't know everybody super well yet, right? Like, you can only tell so much by interviewing someone over the phone or having a conversation, but we really want to build that team atmosphere with our staff. So, yeah, I don't know what question you asked me last. I kind of forgot about it.
No, so, like, what's kind of your philosophy for track building? What are you, because everybody has their own riding style, everyone prefers something. What's kind of, if you were to go out there and build a perfect track or try to emulate have kind of that consistency from track to track to track, what's that kind of look like for you, your perspective?
Well, first of all, I know you're probably wondering about Conowall. Conowall, I just said we need to make it identical to how it was. It was perfect. We don't need to change it.
I hope that's exactly what you said.
That's pretty much what I told Roy. I was like, Roy, I don't know exactly how it was laid out, but I want you to walk in front of us and just show us. Like, that's what we need again.
I want to pull up a GoPro from 2013
oh my gosh.
and race the same race.
It was amazing. Yeah, and so that's what we're doing. But to go back to the question, like, to me, the ultimate track is, something that is fun and flowing. I used to love stuff that was really high speed. The older I've gotten and the more I'm like, I got to go to work on Monday, I'm like, not so much. So I do feel that tracks in Oklahoma have gotten too high speed. And so one of my goals is, I keep saying it to kind of some of my buddies. You look at like the international 6 days enduros and their field sections and some of what they do. Like, I want to bring some of that aspect to it, to where it's not just wide open fifth gear forever. It's some flowing turns, some fun stuff where you can still open it up and have fun, but at the same time, you're not risking your life necessarily going 60, 70 miles an hour, down a sandbar straightaway. So yeah, I like a good mix of both. Being on the East Coast for a while now, my flavor, I guess you could say, has changed a little bit to where I do like some of the tighter stuff. I like the more technical creek crossing, that type of thing. So
you're just gonna make a better rider.
Gonna make a better rider, right? So for us, I really think in our first year, we want to completely change the narrative of really what's been in Oklahoma, and that's hard to do with tracks that are already in place. But we want to change it up. I mean, for instance, round 1 at Guthrie, that race has been one of my favorites for years. But it's always been the same track.
Yeah.
And so we're starting way early. I'm going there after this, actually, and getting started on it. 4.5 weeks early, we're going to go out there and really change a lot of stuff. I mean, we want to go in and cut new trail. We want to take out some sections that maybe weren't people's favorite. We want to change up the field section. And we're going to put a lot of work into it. I mean, this is something where I'm spending, 2-3 weeks ahead of time, building the track, the way I feel it should be. So a good mix of flow and tighter stuff, maybe some technical stuff, but at the same time, not something that's going to bottleneck.
Yeah. So that place has always been something that I thought was, even years it wasn't my favorite track, was always a true cross-country track.
It is, yeah.
Because it had wide, fast field sections, not just necessarily a mile straight, but you were cooking in the field sections, then you duck into the trees, and you come back in a field section, you duck back in and out the whole time, and kind of had a fast flowy track. But
yeah, it's always been
cool
one of my
place.
favorites. I mean, the Myers family, Randy Shepard, all those guys, I think they kind of built that or helped with it, and they did an incredible job. Super cool property, and like I said, it's probably in my top 5, favorites. Yeah. I love Woodward too. Woodward's a little bit similar, but
Vic and Lynette, if you're watching this by chance, please.
I would love that one day.
My firstborn's already named, but my secondborn could be Victor or Lynette or
we could figure that one out.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So if you're out here watching this, I'll probably send you this video clip begging you, please.
We would love a race out there.
That place is like my home. I close my eyes at night and I think I'm at Woodward. So I love that, and I love you guys. A little shout out there. Let's kind of back up a little bit, because I think we touched on some pieces of it, but not necessarily directly on it. What's kind of the genesis story for Great Plains? Like what kind of made you think, oh, hey, this is what I need to do?
Yeah. So it's honestly probably more personal than even like just career change or just like, oh, I want to start a racing series. With Fuel Ministry, it was such a blessing and like still is. But the travel began to just like wear on me. It's just like I was gone, a lot of weekends and a lot of weeks during the summertime from my wife. Obviously, she has to work at home or works in our hometown. And being gone that much was just like, I don't know if I can do this forever, And I actually walked out my door one day to come to Oklahoma to do a trackside ministry event. And it just felt different. I was just like, I'm done. I can't be apart from my wife anymore like this. And here I am apart from my wife right now, but there's an end in sight. Yeah, there's an end in sight to it. And so ultimately, like there's no, I still love Fuel Ministry and still it goes beyond what I can even, comprehend here of just how much I love that ministry and love that job. I mean, it's a dream job, but there came a point where I just really had to prioritize my wife and my marriage and going, okay, we need to be together more. And how can we do that and still honor and glorify the Lord and do something that God has placed in front of us with the gifts and tools that He's given us to connect with people with motor sports, and do something we love. And so prayed that weekend, didn't listen to the radio at all the whole way here, 12 hours, and just prayed and was thinking of things. And I guess I can back up a little bit further. I've always had this weird thought in my head of like, where I was traveling around to IXCRs, GNCCs, like, how cool would it be to bring this back to Oklahoma? And that was like just this thought that popped in my head, like what I thought was a wild thought back then, of just like, man, that'd be cool to, go back to Oklahoma and bring this there. And what if I did start a racing series? And would always just kind of push that in the background, but came down that weekend, did trackside ministry, and it really just like became very evident to me that it's like, oh man, like it's something I can't explain. I won't say that I'm the best at deciphering, like the Lord's will and the Lord's voice, and I don't always get it right by any means, but just became very clear that there was a confidence with it of like, okay, you need to pursue this a little bit more, and you need to start making some phone calls, you need to start figuring some things out. And so started putting pen to paper on a lot of things, and I like still to this day right now I get goosebumps a little bit thinking about all the things that had to align for this to happen. And so whenever I started just making some of those phone calls and working on the details of things, it's just like one thing after another that just fell into place, one after another. And so come basically like late May, early June, basically like was at a point where I could go, okay, this way or that way, are we going to go with this? We're going to bite the bullet, or are we going to go the other direction? And, my wife and I, we spent a lot of time praying about it and talking about it. And we really felt confident that this was the next step, is kind of taking this leap of faith. And in some ways it's really cool because I've wanted to be close to my family again. My family's from here, and it's going to be great being back close to home and around friends and family. But I would just say it was kind of a whirlwind there for a couple months of like, whoa, is this really happening? Yeah. And still today, like, I mean, even when I roll across the Oklahoma state line, it's like I have to pinch my skin a little bit. Like, is this real? Like, and there is that kind of like sigh of relief, like I'm home again, like, one of the things I talk about a lot is like, I love, because you can see the skyline here. Like you can see the horizon and everything, and I'm getting off track, but in Kentucky, it's a little bit darker, and it's just like, man, I'm ready to be back here in the open country again. Sure, I'm going to miss everything, like all my connections, all my friends and family there. I mean, I have a whole nother family there now, and but kind of getting back on track a little bit, I guess, is just the genesis of it is that we saw an opportunity where maybe what we felt was in the area here, right now can be improved, and we have the resources and the tools to do it. And so for me, I thought, let's strike while the iron's hot. Let's get in there and let's bring something for the racers that is going to be fun for them. I would run into people all the time at GNCCs from Oklahoma. I'm like, what in the world are you doing 25, 26, 27 hours away from home? And they're like, we want to come race a really good series. And that's not to dish anything around here, but they wanted to race what was being presented over there. And, you know, for me, it's like, man, if I can save those guys, you know, 60 hours of driving total, you know, to have that out their back door, then let's put that together and let's do it.
Yeah.
You know, and that ultimately is kind of the vision behind it, is like, we have the resources, we have, you know, kind of the history of learning these things and experience of being able to go to these different venues, and let's bring it to light in Oklahoma. So,
have you had any negative
no, not I mean,
anything like that? You don't have to be specific,
yeah. No, I won't go into detail. I mean, it's been overwhelmingly positive. You know, on the front end, I would say that there was a couple before I had to pretty quickly release who it was behind it. I wanted to wait a little while
because people trust you.
Yeah, I wanted to get through summer before I really announced anything, and so that's why I didn't put my face with it right away. It's like, hey, you know, I've got this obligation with Fuel Ministry. I just want to kind of get this out there and let it sit with people. And right away, there were some people that, you know, I mean, they posted some things just asking questions. I mean, even your post, you know, you were kind of like, what's going on here?
That's before I knew.
That's before you knew, you know? And I'm just like, oh man, you know, like, gosh, I guess I better put this out who it is. Cause they're like, think it's some knucklehead, you know, maybe I am a knucklehead, but you know, I'm just like, well, I'll just go ahead and post it, you know? And so once I put it out there who it was, I literally, the night I posted it, going back to that, I have never had my phone like completely shut off. My phone literally was, it was receiving so much that like it just blanked out.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. And I had to reset it. And it was like, all of a sudden, you know, all these phone calls and text messages and everybody wants to talk to you, you know? And I think I spent like I think I spent 2 days like just responding to everybody and getting back. And I thought that was crazy, you know, because it's like, man, there's, you know, a lot of people really excited about this, but there has been some negative feedback. And honestly, I think that the negative feedback comes from people that probably are not getting all the information first. You know, we received some negative feedback on the pit riding thing. Like there was some stuff out there originally on if we're going to allow pit riding or not. And I think some people maybe misinterpreted that, you know, and ultimately like my goal with the pit riding thing is to provide safety. You know, it doesn't come from a point of like being a Debbie Downer and not letting people have fun. It's just more so like, I want people to be safe.
And not to get killed, because
that's
happening in Oklahoma.
It has happened. And, you know, I hate to throw out the insurance card, but if we as racers want to race, we have some big problems to face as the insurance companies, you know, are coming for us, and you have to obey what they say. And if you don't, then you're at risk of putting this sport in jeopardy in the future. And so, you know, it's maybe some narrow-minded views, but they're honestly like, those are all minuscule. Like, it's been overwhelmingly positive. We've had over 550 number reservations, you know, just an insane amount of support from people. And we've had phone calls from people in Colorado, from people in Kansas, Texas, Missouri, Arkansas, all over the place.
That's got to, on one aspect, maybe ease your nerves of like
start
up for the new business, but also be like, it's a lot of pressure. It is
a lot of pressure, but I can handle pressure that way better than I can pressure of nobody showing up. You know, and this is not the place to go into details of what all this takes to go into it, but it's a lot, you know, and there's a lot of stress with, I mean, you see the equipment sitting outside and there's a lot there. And so it's good to know that people are excited and people are wanting to come, because ultimately that means that hopefully this will thrive for years to come.
Yeah. I'm stoked for it.
I am too. Yeah. I'm excited. I kind of wish I was a racer in the state of Oklahoma again.
That's probably going to be the hard part for you. It's like you put on this thing, but you don't get to enjoy it. You have to enjoy it through other people.
Yeah. And you know, that's the thing. Like, I guess we never really finished the topic of like my racing, but like I haven't raced a dirt bike in a year now. And most of it's because of my concussions, like my head injuries. I've had 9 of them, and you know, it's at the point now where it's like, I don't need to have any more. So for me, I do get to enjoy it from a different aspect. And for me, this is my aspect of enjoying it. You know, if this is like the angle where I wouldn't say I get the adrenaline rush that I did racing, but it's like pretty dang close to it, you know, of like seeing an event run perfectly, like starting on the minute, like all those things, like it just like that kind of stuff right there.
Yes. Like
and not to say that always will happen, right? Because it's off-road racing and there's elements that are outside of our control with mud or
sweep lap's gonna last
I mean, just things like that. But like to me, it's like, okay, the challenge is to start on the minute, and all these things. And so there's different ways that I kind of chase that same feeling now, but it'll definitely be difficult not being out there racing some. So
there's I think sometimes when you post something, like my knee-jerk reaction, because the only thing I've ever known is one thing. So my knee-jerk reaction is like, oh, that's not going to work. And I have to step back and kind of think about it like, actually, maybe it's not how I would have done it, but I think that'll work just as fine too.
Yeah.
For example, like maybe you can kind of walk us through the decision behind it, but like the open numbers thing. There's pros and cons to that.
Yep.
And stepping back and kind of thinking about it, like I can see it from both aspects and I can really see the benefit to it. But kind of how'd you end up there?
Well, so there's probably three sides to it, but the first one is our numbering system. We're not using Moto Tally, which is what a lot of series around here use. A lot of people like to use a numbering structure with different scoring systems. Ours is not set up that way where it really matters. So the way that our numbering system is set up is 002. It's got to be 3 digits. And on your bike, you can run just 1 digit if you're a 1-digit number or 2. But your barcode on your helmet always has to be 3. So 002 through 999. And that is for the youth bike race, for the PM race, or for the AM bike race, for the PM bike race. Each race that takes off in the day, they have that number selection. It's not just by class. But with that, the reason for it is 2 things. One, that's just how it's set up in the system that we're using, the scoring system. But the second one really that got to me where I could change it or not change it was Okra runs a class number structure. And I did not want to make it hard on the racers of having to choose, because I wanted to be able to race wherever they want, right? Like if they want to race both, all the better. It's more racing, and ultimately the racers get faster because they're racing more and they have more competition. And so it's a great aspect there. But 2 is with them having to choose what decal they're going to run. Like there's no way I'm going to match Okra's classes completely, and there's no way I'm going to match their number structure completely. And so it was just kind of one of those things where it's going to be such a headache for everybody that I was like, hey, you know what? Let's just run whatever number you want to run. You can run it on your machine as long as it's available. And for us, all that we pay attention to is the barcode on your helmet. So makes it easier on everybody, in my opinion. I think it helps the situation a little bit and allows people to not have to stress so much over having, they can have whatever number they want. I mean, to me, that's pretty cool. So.
And that's what I settled on, is like from a racer standpoint, especially if you already have numbers, now you don't have to get new numbers.
Yeah.
The other part of it for me, and this is, again, you release more information and then it's like, oh, that works.
Yeah.
But it's like, I could tell if I was in the same class as somebody by the number they were.
Yeah.
Like if I'm a 253 and I'm racing a 248, I'm in the same class.
Yeah.
But there's
the helmet stickers on the back of the helmet.
Absolutely.
Which
helps the guy behind.
Yeah, it helps the guy behind, right? But also, I mean, if you look at any other series across like the East Coast, GNCC, IXCR, any of these big series, they all do the same thing. And ultimately, one of the goals we have is to make racers better. Well, there's no doubt you should move over if you're getting lapped, right? But you shouldn't be having to look back and see who's in your class. You should be moving forward anyways. Not that I'm going to be a riding coach for everybody, but, it's like, hey, you shouldn't be looking
at least
back.
The guy in the back can yell different class.
Yeah,
if they abuse that on the way by, then I'm like, we're going to have problems.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, hey, if you are getting lapped, if you're slower, move over. But, if you got somebody that you don't know if it's in your class or not, and you are having a good battle, like, you probably just need to keep
Enjoy the battle.
Yeah, enjoy the battle.
Every battle's going to make you better.
Yeah. And then he might scream at you and let you know that he's not in your class, and you can move over after that.
Yeah.
But that's kind of my thought process with it.
Yeah. What are some other of those like types of things that are some things that are different from what we're used to? But
I would honestly say I don't want to let all the tricks out of the bag yet, right? Like I really want there to be some surprise at round 1 for people, because there is going to be a lot that is different. Going back to the presentation side of things. our starting line, I've really got some cool things in line there where we're going to have a structure to start every race that is pretty formal and standard. And what I mean by that is I've been to a lot of races that if you're the first one on the starting line, you're going to get the whole shot because the first turn is a bike length in front of you. And to me, I just never liked that. It's like, man, like I'm going to go sit down on the start an hour early to make sure I get a good starting spot, right? But like it should be more equal for everyone. And so having a certain distance to our first turn and having a second and a third turn before you go into the woods, more like a GNCC style is really important to me. And, that's one of the big things. And then also, our class structure is a hard one to gauge just because we have no data, right? And so I have a lot of people reaching out to me, well, put this class in, put this class in, put this class in. I'm like, well, okay, I could put that class in and there could be 3 of you, And so it's really like gauging, right now we're kind of charting on the small end of classes. Like let's bunch them together more. Let's figure out who our audience is.
You can always make more classes later.
And make more from there. And so one of the things I'll be talking about too on our page is I wrote a rule into our rule book actually to help the racers for the first 3 races is that if you need to bump down a class, the first 3 races of the 2025 season, our first ever season, you can move down.
Right.
Which I think is a good thing. I have a lot of people asking about that. They're like, hey, I'm going to start in C because, I'm going to start in C because I think I'm a B rider, but I don't want to go out there and get my butt whooped and not be able to move down. Well, you can with that rule, and it kind of opens up some things. So I wouldn't only say that it's just like, it's not just what we're doing at the track. It's kind of things like that right there where like our goal is to write things in favor of the racer, right? Within reason. I'm looking at it through the lens of a racer myself and going, this would be great if this rule was written this way because it gives the racer the advantage. And another thing too is our arrowing. The way that we are going to arrow our courses is going to be very similar to GNCC. It's going to be, standard 20 feet to either side of the course.
Go that way.
And go that way. Yeah. Like it's not, and that's not to judge any other series, but there are some rules out there with other series that are difficult, And
which that makes your life easier as the guy that's having to deal with penalties.
Yes,
Someone
exactly.
cuts inside of an arrow or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, now there's a frivolous case.
Yeah. And that's the thing is it's going to be very black and white for us. If we need you to go around something, there's going to be double arrows where you have to go between those 2 arrows, right?
And hopefully some banner.
And there's going to be a lot of banner.
Yeah.
There's a lot of banner. You guys, like, I don't know exactly what my number will be, but I'm going to say it's around 5,000 feet of banner a weekend is what we're estimating. So a lot more banner. Yeah. And then our field sections are going to be, we're going to have like PVC pipe, like white PVC pipe up out of the ground.
You can see it.
That way you can see it with a banner coming off of it. That way you have to go around the outside of it.
Are you driving stakes by hand? Or
yeah.
You have, I saw where you can get like a hammer drill with,
Really?
Yeah.
So I'm using a T-post driver actually.
Oh, you do the 2-stroke T-stroke?
Well, just hand.
Oh, yeah.
That's the main ones. Well, my dad owns a fence company, so I grew up doing that anyways. I wish I had some guns to speak for it, but I really don't.
Technique.
So it's just all in the technique. But, we've got just a large supply of.
You're gonna be driving so many stakes, your arms are gonna be on this.
I know, just all the time.
T-Rex arms.
But so just some different things like that. Like our course markings are going to be very different and simplistic for the racer in mind. Like, I don't want racers having to be out there and trying to think through like what degree angle an arrow is and things like that. Just simply because when you're going fast, it's hard to tell sometimes. And so, that's another thing.
What's it like getting sponsors?
I enjoy that aspect of it because I used to be, not that Fuel Ministry really sponsored that many events, but I spent a lot of time on vendor row with people. So I had a lot of connections starting off. And I posted our podium banner the other day with all of our sponsors on it.
Yeah, it's stacked.
Yeah, it's been amazing. We've been super blessed in our first year. I had set a goal and we've far exceeded that goal of what I was hoping to get to in our first year. And it is difficult though with it being first year because everything's a prediction and you have to explain to people, hey, this is what I'm predicting, but I don't know, And so thankfully I've been able to build a lot of connections with companies and people within the industry that support me and trust me and know that, we're going to provide a good platform for them to showcase their business and their product, and ultimately help them get their return on their investment of them supporting us. And we, as we'll push to our racers, we really hope that our racers as well take advantage of supporting those that support us, because without them, you all wouldn't be able to race.
Yeah,
and ultimately, like that's what we're going to push really hard is, we've got some incredible people behind us, and we hope that people support them as well.
Absolutely. Because like obviously your entry fees go back into paying, but like you've got people on the payroll, like all these different pieces have to come together to make it race weekend work. Like I said earlier, for the porta potties, the trash, to the scoring trailer, to the medic, to
insurance is huge.
Insurance is a huge expenditure.
Yeah. Like for myself as a racer growing up, I never understood what it takes to put on a race. Like I went to all these races and I just thought, it just all magically appears in the field, and nobody's really like volunteering or working for the weekend or spending their time doing this. We're all here having a good time. There's no doubt the people that are volunteering want to do it. Thankfully, there's people that have a heart for it, right? And they want to. But man, there's a lot that goes into it. And it like opened my eyes, like, man, as a racer, I never was grateful enough, And I was like, now I see it from a different lens, and it really is crazy. And I'm super thankful for all the people that have done it for years before to allow me to be able to race and do what I love. So
yeah. And I think people want to be involved with something functional.
Absolutely.
Like people always, not always, but I think more people than do want to be a part of something, want to offer their services, even if they're busy, they want to be used in a part of something. But like if the system's broken, sometimes people don't want to be a part of that. You see with everything, not just racing, it's like something's kind of broken down. Like it's easier to just show up and do your thing and then go home. Yeah. Not be so invested with it.
Yeah.
I think you'll get a lot more support, and you're already gotten so much support.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, it's been great so far, and I think it is a lot of work, but it's worth it. It's fun stuff.
First season, what are some of your realistic goals that you've set?
For us, I would say in our first season, I hold my goals pretty close to my chest.
All right.
But I'll just share, for us, we want to run going back to functional, we just want it to be something that is ran very smooth and professionally done. And we don't want it to look like it's our first year. Is ultimately what it boils down to. I would love to see consistently having 500 racers show up. I have numbers in my head of what I would love to see a part of our series, because I feel like once you get over a certain number of racers, then your competition level goes up dramatically. And to me, I want to see great competition within Great Plains Cross Country for the racers. And so, really to me, I think the biggest thing is getting our feet on the ground and getting good racer numbers. And we've got those numbers in our head of what we want to meet in year one. And then on top of that too is just starting on time and running great, clean, smooth events week in and week out, and being consistent across the board. So those are kind of some of them. I'm not going to go into detail of all the goals. But
well, then I won't ask you what your long-term goals are, because I'm sure those are going to even play even closer.
Yeah.
I'm kind of seeing like a regional thing kind of happening.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like, ultimately our goal is to get to a level where we are kind of the GNCC of the Great Plains region.
Yeah.
I don't know if that'll ever happen.
You gave yourself room with Great Plains.
Yeah. Well, so that was one of the things with the name.
Smart.
Even like we originally we had like 4 different names, and Jeff Rowland is a good friend of mine. He's the one that does all of our logo and design work and our trophies and everything.
Top-notch.
Yeah, Jeff, you're incredible if you're listening to this. Like
I've been impressed.
He has made me look really, really good, and a lot of the credit goes to him. But with it, I was talking to him, and I was just like, what do we name it? I shared with him like the 3 other names I had, and he was like, why would you trap yourself like in Oklahoma and have to rebrand, And I was like, dude, that's incredible. Like, we got to go wider than that. And so ultimately, I would say, just kind of to give you a little nugget, is the goal is to stretch out into other states eventually, if we have the following, right? Like we might find that the following is all in Oklahoma. People are good with coming to Oklahoma. Why would we stretch out and lose our audience, right? So a lot of that is going to be gauged off of after our first year, seeing where our attendance is at. And the next thing on top of that would be maybe branching out into different disciplines. we'll just see where things take us from there. But
Mm-hmm.
we've got some things that we're thinking through and looking at long term, and we see some areas that maybe are not necessarily missing the mark, but not taking advantage of the racing industry as good as it could. So
Yeah.
that's some areas we want to improve on.
What advice would you give to like a new racer coming into your series?
That's a hard one because like I'm such a hardcore racer. Like I used to be so hardcore. It's like it's really hard. But honestly,
hard to empathize.
Yeah, it's hard to empathize with them. But like I would say, like if you're coming to race our series, is one of the biggest things is just start with having fun. Like just enjoy it. Just simply go out and enjoy racing. Don't take it too serious. Let it take you wherever it goes, and
you'll get hooked. So
you'll get hooked. I mean, there's not much you have to say to a new racer as long as it's in the blood.
The next day after the first race, first day you're gonna be cooked. The next day you'll be like, when's the next one?
Yeah, and just to me it's just simply don't put too much pressure on yourself. Just go out and have fun.
Yeah, I got some rapid fire questions.
Yeah,
dream race location.
Oh. Downtown Oklahoma City.
GP style?
Yeah, a little bit of everything.
That would be epic.
Yeah.
I love Grand Prix.
Yeah, that's like where I want to end up.
Dude, have you heard of the Florence Grand Prix?
I have. I want to go there.
Did it a couple of years ago?
Yeah. Like Talahina. Talahina is kind of the driving factor behind that for me. Like Talahina, if you guys are listening, you don't know, Talahina was like the coolest race ever. I remember sitting in the ice cream parlor on Main Street watching the rows take off. Like
that's so cool.
So cool, and it's like I would love even Talahina, like somewhere like that. Like my goal eventually is to find a city that will work with us, but I want it to be like an old-fashioned Main Street, small town with the rodeo, grounds in the back where people park.
I might have to check out Freedom, Oklahoma.
Yeah, I've heard of that actually.
Rodeo ground. Anyways, but the Florence Grand Prix I did a couple years. I missed it last year because I had a baby and all that stuff. But
yeah, that
hopefully this year. I've already got it on my calendar. But like,
when is it this year?
It's always on. It's on our anniversary.
Oh,
weekend. So we just made a weekend of it. Go up to Wichita.
Yep.
And then race on Sunday. But
there you go.
Town is pretty small. Like maybe like in the hundreds of people.
Yeah.
And you're racing down Main Street. You're racing through people's yards.
Yeah.
People are like on their front porch, just like cheering you on the whole time.
Yeah.
Easily my top 3 moments on a motorcycle. The coolest experience. I
kind of like this stuff back here.
Like this is on any Sunday.
Yeah.
What was that? The Elsinore Grand Prix.
Yeah, the Elsinore Grand Prix. Yeah.
That is like the heart of cross country for me. Like I love. A good Grand Prix.
Yeah,
I put a couple on down at OMC.
Yeah, and that's like another thing. Like I would love to do some one-offs like that, maybe in the summertime where it's too hot to like run a full-on cross country, right? Yeah. Like eventually, it'd be so cool to do something.
That was fun.
Like that.
We rode on the go-kart track and everything.
Oh, that'd be so sick.
It was sweet.
Yeah.
Favorite bike you've ever owned?
Ooh, I would have to say the 2015 Husky is the first year they went back to white. Mm-hmm. That bike was really, really good. Like I gelled with it well. Mark Atterbury had set up the suspension on it, and yeah, I'd say that bike was probably my favorite. Mm-hmm. Of course, nowadays, like they're probably much better than that. I mean, even my bike nowadays is really good, but there's just something about. I think that's the bike that I won, kind of some of my better races on. So I'd probably say that one.
Yeah. Pre-race routine / superstitions.
So I don't necessarily have any superstitions.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, but I really, I honestly was probably a jerk getting ready to race. Like I definitely like put on the game face and was not the same, Huddy everybody likes to talk about. Mm-hmm. The biggest thing for me that I would do is really like I was trained by Tony Joyner or Robbie Rayner to get my heart rate up beforehand, get my blood pumping, and be able to kind of get ready to race. And so would go on a jog, listen to music while I'm getting ready, peanut butter honey sandwich with banana, and, things like that. And then another big thing too, whenever I had like the people to do it, I would really like to have my bike on the line, but not be on the starting line till right before the race. Just gets in your head sometimes with your competition right there beside you. So I don't know, like standing off to the side and just coming up last second and hopping on the bike and being in game mode and go.
Yeah.
So locked in, as the kids call it.
Locked in. I haven't heard that one yet. I'm just kidding.
It's just a kid one.
It's a kid one. Best post-race meal.
Ooh, Texas Roadhouse.
Texas Roadhouse. All right.
It's heavy, but it's good.
Yeah. I mean, you can eat whatever you want after you race.
Yeah. But so after Taylor and I got married, obviously being a little bit tighter on money starting off, pro entry's a little bit more expensive typically, right? Because you get payout if you do well. And then both of us racing, it's like that's $150 a day right there. And so our thing was we're both tightwads, but we would either, like if I didn't do well, we'd just be like, hey, we're just fixing our peanut butter and honey sandwich and driving home. But if I got on the podium, got money, we'd always go to Texas Roadhouse and eat, or go somewhere nice and eat, whatever's on the way. So
no consolation prize.
No, it's like we'd blow that money just eating. It wouldn't be very much. It'd be like $100 or something, It's like go eat somewhere with that. But yeah, a good Mexican place too.
Oh, dude,
I can chat out on some Mexican food.
Last lap, I'm thinking about Mexican food.
Yeah, I need like the salty and sweet, like a Dr. Pepper with like a good Mexican meal.
Just chow on chips and salsa.
Yes. Yeah.
Mexican food after a race.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
I'm scouting that stuff out on the way there. For sure. Go-to practice track. Maybe growing up or whatever.
Honestly, my backyard. We have a really awesome neighbor. Joe was our neighbor. He had 10 acres behind us, and he let us basically take 5 acres of his field and just make a turn track. And I turned more laps there than I ever did anywhere else.
I bet that helped.
And it was literally just ruts. And, I had a 50-second loop, and that was probably my favorite place to ride. I had a sweet endurocross track at one point, had a couple little jumps, had a couple big stupid jumps that I made when I was like 16, 17 years old that didn't know how to make a landing, and, those hurt. But yeah, as weird as it sounds, like that's probably not my favorite place to ride, but it was kind of my favorite place to practice and just grind out laps growing up.
Yeah. Most underrated riding skill? Not just for you, but like, what do you think in general?
I don't know if it's necessarily a skill, but like racecraft to me is a really big one. Like just knowing when to go and when to hold. I would honestly say, it's gonna sound really weird, but patience is one of the things I've really learned. Like patience as a fast rider. And the reason I say that is I got myself in a lot of trouble, like by rushing things too quickly, whether that's a mud hole or a pass or going around a lapper and like just not seeing a log that was just up in the leaves or whatever, just having a little bit of patience, a little bit of maturity to slow down a little bit. I don't know if that's necessarily a skill or not, but something for me outside the box.
I wasn't expecting it, so that's probably underrated. Yeah, that's solid. I'm so excited and pumped for what you've done and what you're doing. Where can people follow Great Plains?
Yeah, on Facebook, Instagram, Great Plains Cross Country on Facebook, Great Plains XC on Instagram, and then also our website, greatplainsxc.com. You can see all the information on all 3 of those platforms, as well as I post all of it on my page, Hudson Taylor. And we're excited for this year. It's going to be great, all the things we've talked about, but there's a lot more up the sleeve too that we just really want people to come and experience for themselves. You can talk so much on a podcast or in a video, but at the end of the day, we want people to be able to see it, smell it, and experience it themselves, and to leave with a smile on their face and know that the money that they spent was well worth their while. Is really at the end of the day, it's like we want you to come and feel like it's money well spent, and that you got to enjoy your weekend. Yeah.
Well, awesome. I think nothing's left but the racing.
That's right.
First race is
February 22nd and 23rd.
All right.
So about 4 weeks away. We're going to be here.
You have to get in race shape somehow.
I need to get in promoter shape. I don't know what that looks like yet, but I got to figure out promoter shape, and I have no clue yet, so we'll figure that one out.
Oh, well, start pounding the hamburgers or something.
Yeah, something like that. The concession stands. I'm going to keep the concession stands busy. Yeah. I did it right there. Yeah. I'm going to have concession stands there, and it's going to be good. We're going to have plenty of food. So
that's awesome. Well, Hudson,
Hey, thanks, so dude. Appreciate it. Yeah, it's fun being on here, and I'm excited to see where this goes, and ultimately for a platform for Oklahoma. Like, I can't wait to see you guys or you at our races and being able to present content. And,
that'd be fun.
I see it all over, like with different series and across the East Coast and GNCC having a podcast platform and a video platform and all the things that you're going to do. And to me, it just brings racing to life throughout the week on the way to work for people, on the way home for work. Kind of keeps you plugged into the racing community, what's going on. So I appreciate you and you taking the time to do this and having me on your show.
Yeah, for sure. Well, man, that was awesome. That was fun.
Sorry, I was really like tight the whole time, but
no, you weren't.
I think it's from being in the vehicle the whole time.
I'm tight now and cold.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. It's fun.
I appreciate you joining us for this episode. I had a great time talking with Hudson Taylor about his new series and about kind of what he's gone through to get here. On an outstanding guy and a great guy to be our first guest. So really appreciate him being here for that. If you liked what you saw today, please hit the like, hit the subscribe button, and make sure that you stay up to date and informed on what's coming up. Leave a comment for us. Let us know what your thoughts are. Hopefully you enjoy this content and want to see more of it. Some other things coming down the pipe. Here shortly, you should be seeing some things from my racing, from other people's racing. Plan on going to some different events and just kind of documenting those vlog style. Also want to continue doing some podcasts like this where I just get to interview people who I've come across in my years in the industry, people who I know have really cool stories that otherwise would go untold. So I'm really looking forward to being a part of that and you coming alongside me on this journey. I also want to give a shout out to Ajax Motorsports. Those guys have helped me out over the years. Full disclosure, they don't pay me. I used to work for them, but those guys are so great that I just want to give them a shout out anyways. So if you need anything for your dirt bike, whether that's parts, gears, accessories, if you need a new dirt bike, go see those guys at Ajax Motorsports. So hit subscribe. We'll see you next time.